Well, a very pleasant good evening to each and every one of you. It is a joy and a privilege for me to be here with you. I appreciate the singing that you did, the prayer that was worded, and I appreciate the invitation to speak to you tonight. Most of you don't know me, and I'll just say that my name is Bob. I'm 78 years old. I've been trying to preach the gospel for 57 years. And I go to countries all over the world. And people often ask me, what is your mission? And I say, really, I want to do two things. There are some things that have been put in people's head that's not in the Bible. And I want to pull that out and throw it away. There are other things that's in the Bible that they've not studied or they've not read, and I'd like to study with them and put that into their head. I'd like to help make more Christians. When people ask me about my religion, I say, well, I claim to be a restorationist. They don't know what that means. I say, well, I'm just trying to restore for the 21st century what Christianity was like back in the first century. I don't want to do anything that I can't find Bible authority for. And if you and I get into a discussion, and if you want to prove something to me, I'll hold my hand up like this, that I want you to take your hand and grab my hand and put my finger on the verse that you want me to read. If you can't show it to me in the Bible, I'm not interested at all in following it. I wish I had a lot more time that we could talk about things around Calgary and the work here. I wish I had about a month to be with a bunch of you, and we'd go door knocking and see how many Bible studies that we could set up. But I am interested in turning our attention now to this lesson. And what I'm calling this is found. Those found by Christ find others and then bring them to Christ. So, you think you can do that? Let's try something right here. If it doesn't offend the church, I'd like for everybody to say the words, just 3 words, come and see. Can you do that? Listen, 1, 2, 3. Come and see. All right, let's do it again. Come and see. All right, now I want you to take that home with you tonight, and I want you to start using that. Because a lot of people, they're not involved in personal evangelism. They're not bringing people to the Wednesday night Bible class. They're not bringing anybody to the Sunday worship service because many are afraid. Afraid because we don't have all the answers. Afraid because they might ask us a question that I would have to say, I don't know. Now, with that being said, let's look here at Jesus. John the Baptist was out on the banks here in the wilderness. He was standing there with 2 of his disciples. Now, I'm sure that he got pretty excited. I probably would have been screaming and shouting, there he is! He's coming! There he is! For 39 books, they've been studying for the fact the Messiah is coming. Jesus is going to be born of a virgin. Jesus is going to live. Jesus is going to die. Jesus is going to establish his church. Now, John, of course, was the cousin of Jesus, and God chose him to allow him to go in front of Jesus just to prepare the way. See, John's mission was, get ready, he's coming. You see, for 39 books in the Old Testament, the message was, someone is coming, someone is coming. And now we get to the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Someone is here, someone is here. And then he's killed, and then he ascends back into the sky. And now the message is, somebody's going to come again. And so are we ready for that? Now, when Jesus was standing with these two disciples, John is pointing and says, "Behold the Lamb of God." The next verse, they followed Jesus. One of them was named Andrew. Now let me ask you, have you ever read any books in the Bible that Andrew wrote? Have you ever read any sermons that Andrew preached? So are you going to conclude Andrew wasn't important? Andrew went out and found his brother. His brother was Simon Peter. Have you read any books that Peter wrote? Have you read the sermons that Peter preached? Now let me just interrupt myself right now. There would never have been a Peter if there hadn't been an Andrew. Now some of you may think that you're not qualified to be a song leader. You can't be the Bible teacher on Sunday. You can't preach the sermon. But you can be an Andrew, because Andrew said, "We have found the Christ." So he brought him to Jesus. He brought his brother to Jesus. And then Jesus changes his name. That's when it goes from Simon to Cephas, or in the English, we call that Peter. Keep going through the gospel. Jesus then found Philip. And what did Jesus say? "Follow me." That's in John 1:43. Philip then goes and finds Nathanael. "Come and see." Now, do you think at that moment, do you think that Philip had all the answers? Do you think that Philip understood everything that's getting ready to take place in these changes? We're not going to worship on the Sabbath day anymore. We're not going to be bound by dietary restrictions. We don't have to offer animal sacrifices. Do you think he understood that? I don't think so. And see, a lot of people are afraid to invite their neighbors to come to this building on Sunday, because if I invite them, they might ask me a question that I don't know. You don't have to know every answer to every question. Just simply say, "Come and see." "Oh, I've heard about you folks of the Church of Christ. You don't have the piano, the organ, the guitar. Your music must be horrible." Come and see.
Yes, amen.
"Well, I hear you have the Lord's Supper every Sunday. That must get monotonous. That must be boring. There must be nobody having any emotions when they're eating that bread." And, well, come and see. "Well, you don't even call the preacher the Reverend? What is he?" Come and see. Now, that doesn't sound hard, does it? Because you see, when Philip finds Nathanael, he says, we have found the one the Old Testament was talking about. We have found him. Come and see. Now in Mark chapter 5 and verse 18, as Jesus was getting in the boat, the man that Jesus had healed, the man that was demon-possessed, comes up and is begging Jesus, "Let me go with you." Now, Eric and I might take that as a compliment. You know, you like that one sermon you heard, and now you're wanting to go with us where you can hear another sermon? But Jesus says, "No, I don't want you to go with me. What I want you to do, go home to your people and report to them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you. Let them see the difference in you. You used to be demonic, and now you're calm. I wonder how many of us in this building have a reputation that's not so good. That I used to be known as a liar. I was a thief. I chased other men's wives. I got drunk every Friday night. But then I found Jesus. If the world cannot see a difference, then I don't think I've yet found Jesus. But if I have made Jesus a part of my life, because if I'm understanding the epistles, I used to think Peter could make up his mind what he wanted to say. I am crucified with Christ. That means you're dead, right? I'm crucified with Christ, yet I live. Oh, wait a minute. Dead, yet you live? Yet it is not I that lives. Make up your mind, Peter. Are you dead or are you alive? I am crucified, dead. No, I'm living. But now, I found something real interesting in studying the original language, the Greek, right there in that verse. I'm crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet it is not I that lives. In the Greek, that is spelled E-G-O. Ego. We pronounce it in English, ego. You've got to move out to let Jesus move in. I have to die. There's not room here for Bob and Jesus both to live in this body. So Bob has to move out. And so it has to be not my will, but His will to be done. And so Jesus is telling this demonic man, go home. Let people see you. In Mark chapter 5, and he went away and began to proclaim at Decapolis what great things Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. Have you ever talked to anyone about what Jesus has done for you? They say, well, me and the wife were considering a divorce, but we patched it up and things are fine now. Or I was having trouble with one of the teenagers. We hadn't hardly spoken to each other. He or she would run to the bedroom, slam the door. We had a really messed up home. But now, thanks to Jesus, we've got things put back together. Can the world see that? You know, if the world sees you walking out of your house and here's the husband holding his wife's hand, goes to the car and opens the door for her, the neighbor's peeking through the Venetian blinds, and they're seeing that, and they're jealous. They really wish that their husband acted like he loved her as much as that neighbor over there does. And they have a Friday night date, and he's not ashamed to let the whole world know, this is my wife and I love her. It's till death do us part. We've got to let the world see us. In Mark chapter 6, they crossed over the land in Gennesaret, and when they got out of the boat, immediately the people recognized Jesus. This is the one they've all been talking about. This is the miracle worker. This is the one that could heal the blind, that could heal the lame. And then what they did, they took off running into their villages and their cities, and they were bringing back the sick people. All they wanted to do is just touch the hem of his garment. Because they, based on what they have seen, they are convinced this is the miracle worker. He has power. You see, they saw the difference. Now let's look at a story that I think many of you are familiar with. The Samaritan woman. In John chapter 4, starting at verse 3, it says, he left Judea and went away into Galilee, But he had to pass through Samaria. Uh-oh, wait a minute. Jews don't go through Samaria. The Jews and the Samaritans hated each other. But Jesus told his disciples, because the disciples weren't excited about going through Samaria. They said, no, let's not do that. Let's cross over the Jordan, and then we'll go up on the east side there and go north, and then we can come back in. But see, God had Jesus on a mission. They came to this city. They came to Jacob's well. Now, if you've ever looked at this on the map, that's all desert. There are no trees to sit under for shade. This well that Jacob had dug was one of the few places that you're going to find water. And Jesus was tired. He was hot. He was dusty. He was thirsty. And he comes now to this well because he was so wearied. And he was sitting there by the well, the hottest time of the day, the 6th hour. You know, now the Jews at nighttime, they called the nighttime a watch, sort of like those of you that were in the military. You have the second watch. Then the daytime starting at 6 a.m. So 6 to 7 is the first hour, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10. So the 6 hours, the hottest time of the day. Now the Samaritans are occupying this country that formerly belonged to the tribe of Ephraim and to the half-tribe of Manasseh. But a lot of things happened. When the 10 tribes were carried away into captivity to Assyria, the king of Assyria sent people back from several locations. Now also, if you remember the Assyrian captivity, they only wanted the best. They only wanted the smartest. They only wanted the best looking of the women and the men. See, I would have gotten left behind. I strike two for both, the smartness and the looks. So you had several women that were left behind. Now, sad part of history, the Samaritan soldiers remembered how many women were left back there. And several of the soldiers went back later and raped those ladies. They became known as nobody's people. The Jews didn't want a child that had been fathered by a Samaritan. The Samaritans didn't want this Jewish child. They were considered half-breeds. But then, since there was just a small group of them, they started intermarrying with the Israelite population that was still in and around Samaria. And they adopted the idolatrous religion that the outsiders had brought in. Samaria then became what we would call today the first sanctuary city. All of the bad people from everywhere else. You could have been guilty of robbery. You could have been guilty of murder. You would go to Samaria as a place of refuge. And so what was happening, they willingly received all of the Jewish criminals and all of the refugees from justice. So now you've got this new group of people. I don't really call them Jews, but I don't call them Samaritans. But you've got this new group of people that's just forming a society of nothing but the bad people. If you wanted a place where there might be drugs, this would be it. If you wanted prostitution, this might be it. If you want to get a gang together and go out stealing tonight, this would be the place you'd find it. The violators of the Jewish laws and those that had been excommunicated by their communities found safety among the Samaritans. Now, as time went on, as the Samaritan population got smaller, they started marrying their cousins. Some of them married their sisters. And sadly, the Samaritans in later life developed the reputation that many of the children were now retarded because of the intermarriage. Now, I don't like to take somebody else's word for something if I can investigate it myself. So I wrote enough letters until I found this man, who is the current high priest in Israel for the Samaritans. And I asked for a meeting with him. I'm standing here beside their Torah. Now, the Samaritans will not read from Psalms or Proverbs. They only accept the 5 books of Moses, this Torah. That's all they will accept. Now, they're getting smaller and smaller in number. And they're worried about that. Because now see, if a man goes into the mountain, this is at Mount Gerizim, if a man goes into there and says, I want to convert and be a Samaritan, they will not allow a man to do that. The only way they're going to grow if a Samaritan man can find a woman somewhere and marry her. Find your wife in Canada and then bring her over to Israel. Bring her up on top of the mountain and then convert her. The way that they're doing their growth is through the intermarriage. And that's why it's such a sad, sad situation. Now that's what we have here. Jesus is in the land of the Samaritans. You don't shake hands with a Samaritan. You don't accept a drink from them because you're not allowed to touch anything they have touched. J.B. Lightfoot, trying to describe the Samaritans, says, let no Israelite eat one mouthful of anything that is a Samaritan's. For if he eat but a little mouthful, he is as if he had eaten swine's flesh. Now, keep that in mind when Jesus speaks to this woman. Give me a drink. How's she going to do that? She's a Samaritan. I wonder how many times I had read this story. I wonder how many times I'd even preached this story and never really stopped to think about what Jesus is asking. Give me a drink. If she said, okay, here's a glass of water, he can't touch that glass because she's a Samaritan woman. And a Jew can't touch anything that a Samaritan had touched. I don't have the answers for you. I wish I did. It might be that he just cupped his hands like this. Now, I've been to Jacob's well. I have drunk from it. It's a long rope, and you have to drop that rope down there with a bucket and then pull it up. And it's hard work for the ladies. I'll talk about that on the next slide here. It could be that she drew the water and then just poured it over into his hands and he could drink like, I don't know. The point is, he asks for a drink of water. Now, she questions him about this. Number one, I'm a woman. Number two, I'm a Samaritan woman. Now, how is it that you, a Jew, would ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? This goes against all the protocol, everything against our culture. She's a little bit in shock. And then Jesus challenges her, chapter 4, verse 10. If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. She questions him again. You don't have a rope. You don't have a bucket. This well that Abraham dug many years ago is deep. And you're talking about living water? I don't understand. What are you talking about? And Jesus answers her, everyone who drinks of this water. I can just imagine Jesus pointing. Visual aids. Everybody that drinks of this water is going to get thirsty again. You drink of the water that I'm talking about, there'll be no thirst. Now, I said earlier, it's the woman's job to go to the well and draw the water, even still to this day. So you have to climb up the hill, go to the well, lower that rope, fill up that bucket, pull it back up, fill up your water jugs, put that on top of your head, walk back to your home. It's a tedious work. You're telling me that if I drink of this living water, I'll never get thirsty again. I want a cup of that for my husband. If he can drink and never get thirsty again, I won't have to be coming back here to do all this work anymore. Jesus says the water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. She requests him, sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water. Jesus speaks again. And now the conversation really changes. We're getting close to the end of the lesson. I tell people I'm in the delta formation. That means I'm circling. I could land at any moment. Jesus said to her, go call your husband. Tell him to come here. She replies, I don't have a husband. And then Jesus replies, I already knew that. You're right when you said, I have no husband. You've had 5 husbands and divorced from all of them. And now you've got a man that you're sleeping with that you're not married to. You got a pretty bad record here. And she replies, and Jesus answers, how did you know my life? How did you know how many times I've been married? How did you know I'm shacking up with some man now? How do you know everything about my life? And she says, I perceive that you are a prophet. You're not just a normal Jew walking through here to get a drink of water. And what does she do? She is so excited. She leaves her water jar that she came to get water. She left the water jar there and she ran into town. Come and see. You see how easy that is? Come and see. I think I have found the Messiah. I think this is the Christ. Come and see. And so they do come. They accepted her invitation. And I wonder how many of our friends and our neighbors, our relatives, would accept the invitation if we would just give it. Come and see. And guess what? They became believers. They were believers first because of her words, but then they did come to see, and then they became believers because of Christ's words. All Christians are introduced to Christ. If you're wearing the name Christian, I mean, the first part of Christian is Christ. Do you know who He is? Do you know what He did for you? You know Eric's sermon on Sunday morning about grace? You see, all Christians are introduced to Christ. Christians find others. My wife just recently died from cancer. What if one of you had found the cure for cancer, but then told me you weren't going to share it with me? Wouldn't that be selfish? Well, so far, none of us have found the cure for cancer, but we have found the cure for sin. And that's even greater. That's even greater than a cure for cancer. Christians go find people. And those found find others. And the way that we get started is just saying those three words. Come and see. I was preaching in Norway, and I stopped at this little supermarket to buy a Coca-Cola. And lined up on the sidewalk there, on the little ledge of the sidewalk, was about 15 high school students. One of the girls, as I walked by, said, "Hey, you want a joint?" I said, "No, I don't use anything like that." I went on in, got my Coca-Cola. Coming back to the car, then one of the guys spoke up, "Well, you didn't want a joint, you want a bottle of beer?" I said, "No, I don't use that either." And the strangest thing happened. They said, "Are you for real?" I said, "Well, I hope so." They said, "Sit down here and talk to us." I sat with those teenagers for about an hour, and I gave them a short version of the book of Ecclesiastes. Because I think every person on planet Earth wants happiness. I'm convinced every one of those young people did, but they don't know how to find it. You're not going to find it at the bottom of a bottle. You're not going to find it at the end of a joint. And so I talked with them about the meaning of life. The wise man in Ecclesiastes, he tried the wine. He tried the women. He tried all of the money and built an elaborate house, even had a swimming pool out back, had a big orchard on the side. He tried it. He even brought in musicians. If I had enough money, I'd bring in the Beach Boys to entertain me. But the thing is, everything he tried, he didn't find what he was looking for. And now you get to the last chapter in the book of Ecclesiastes. He says, "Now let me give you my conclusion. I've looked everywhere trying to find that happiness. Let me tell you my conclusion. Fear God and keep His commandments." You know, the world doesn't understand how we can have joy if we're not rich. How we can have joy if we're not driving the fanciest automobile or living in the fanciest house. but we've got Christ. When my wife was getting her worst, I called the grandchildren and I say, if you want to see Nana one more time, you better get here today. And they crawled up on the bed with her, all three of my grandkids with Nana. And they sang the song together, Going Home. And then she told them, she said, I want that song sung at my funeral. She gave them all a hug and a kiss on the cheek. And she said, my bags are packed. I'm getting ready to go home. And those were the last words that she ever spoke. What are going to be your words when you're dying? What are going to be your words to mommy and daddy, to husband, to wife, to son, or to daughter? Are you ready to go home? This world is not our home. We're just passing through. We need Jesus. And everybody that we know needs Jesus. And if you have been found, if you are a Christian, you've been given a responsibility. Go find somebody else. We're going to sing a song right now. Some people call it an invitation song, exhortation, encouragement. You see, if I've got 15 seconds left. You see, if there was anything else that I thought I could say that it could encourage you to make a change, I would want to say it. If you're not a Christian, you're not guaranteed a tomorrow. Now, see, last week I was in Honduras, and I went to the home to visit this man. Oh, I know what you teach at the Church of Christ. I know what I need to do. I will someday. I reached over and got a little piece of paper. I said, here, take this piece of paper, and I want you to write down on that piece of paper what day you're going to die. Because I'll be sure and call you the day before you die. And so you're going to have to get right today because tomorrow's when you die. He said, well, Bob, I don't know when I'm going to die. Oh, so it might be tomorrow, huh? Today might be the last day. You don't know when you're going to die. But we do know that we're going to stand in front of God and we're going to be judged. Jesus loved you so much. It wasn't the nails that kept him on the cross. It was his love. And he loves you so much that he died for you. Will you love him enough that you'll try to live for him? If you're not a Christian, tonight is the night to become one. Are you ready to believe, repent, confess, be baptized? If you've never done it, we would rejoice to be witnesses of you making that choice tonight. Or if you've here and you did those things in times past, you became a Christian, and you started living as a Christian, but somehow the devil got hold of you again. You got off the path. You started doing things you shouldn't have done. Will you repent of that tonight? You see, that Samaritan woman, The world would holler, well, that whore is never going to become a Christian. Jesus had compassion. Jesus could say, come and see. If you're here as a Christian, but you know that you've been unfaithful, you know that if you died tonight, you'd be in trouble with your judgment. Be with me, Lord. If there's something that you need to do, the time you need to do it is right now, because you're not promised a tomorrow. Would you respond while together we stand and sing?